Free Repeal Day. Come on, you got to pumped up. Can you imagine like 86 years ago, people were waking up in America finding out that they could drink alcohol legally again? Could you imagine what that day party was like? Those keg stands, those shots, the speakeasies, just a little nervous, unknown, right? Guys, I am De Niro Fisher. I'm your Maker's Mark diplomat for the state of Florida. And to my left, I have my fine partners, Beam Suntory, Dana and Richard. So before I dive in, I want to give them an opportunity to talk.
We just want to introduce ourselves. So I'm Dana, I'm with Beam Suntory. I'm the on-premise channel manager here locally, and I work alongside Richard. All right.
Richard, guys, I know a lot of you, but in case I don't, Richard Allwater, I'm the key account manager in Tampa along with Dana. So if you ever need anything after this, if you want to grab our cards or numbers, if you ever have any questions, anything we can help with, as your specific accounts and stuff like that, just let us know. We're here for you guys with the local team. So enjoy today. Thank you for coming.
Have fun.
In my role, I have an opportunity to go out into the market, train, educate, and really preach the gospel of Maker's Mark, right? But I also have the opportunity to rub shoulders with the likes of you fine folks, which is probably the most favorite part of my job. You guys are truly the trendsetters. You drive the conversation. You guys are literally the movers and shakers of what we do. You guys build brands. You guys are therapists. So I would definitely like to say thank you on behalf of myself and all my esteemed colleagues back in our small distillery back in Loretto, Kentucky. With that being said, so I've been in this role for almost a year now, and what I've admired most so far with Maker's Mark is really their commitment to stay true to our founder's visions, Bill Samuels Sr. and his wife Margie Samuels. I think sometimes, because our footprint is so large in the market, we kind of get that, you guys are just a big square box bourbon factory just spitting out bottles of bourbon, which couldn't be further from the truth. There's actually a handmade element to each and everything that we do. And again, we do these things to stay true to our founder's visions. And for us, that encompasses remaining true to being handcrafted. And that speaks to everything from hand-cutting our labels on a 1935 Chandler and Price printing press, to hand-rotating our 525-pound barrels to ensure that consistency so that every bottle on Maker's Mark tastes the same as the bottle right next to it or right behind it on the shelf. And it also speaks to hand-dipping every single bottle. We like to refer to ourselves as effectively inefficient. And again, we do these things so that we can remain true to our core values and to our DNA, and also so that we can remain true to you who built this brand. We like to say that we were definitely a brand that's built by people, so we want to remain handmade by people. So cheers to you for helping us to build Maker's Mark bottle by bottle, case by case, pallet by pallet. And again, thank you for your contribution to our great industry, for what you do and what you will continue to do as we continue to innovate, thrive, and stay extremely robust as an industry and make some dynamic cocktails and just tear it up for the future and for what's to come as well. So thank you. Have you guys had a good morning so far? Yeah? All right. Are you guys ready to hear some incredible information and have some cocktails in a responsible way?
Let's get one.
I like it. So guys, our speaker here coming to the stage, I'm sure all you guys know him a little bit, right? Mr. Jackie Summers, coming from the Big Apple, the city that never sleeps. Esteemed author, entrepreneur, the founder of Jack's Brooklyn. Just an amazing asset to our industry. Definitely one of the most high-profile individuals that we are lucky enough to have a part of what we do and to make our wonderful industry what it is. I think we are.
Yeah, we got some technical issues.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. All right, so what do you guys think about the welcome cocktail so far?
There you go.
Are you ready to go? Well, I'll tell you about it later. Here it is, Mr. Jackie Summers.
Thank you. so at some point, you're gonna get drink slides up there, but until then, you'll have to put.
Somebody got a microphone.
Appreciate your tolerance. Everyone's got a cocktail in front of them, right?
Can I say one thing? If anybody in the audience happens to have a lightning to HDMI adapter to save the day, because I had one yesterday and it seemed to have walked through the table that I left it. So if anybody has one, okay, it's me.
What do you use?
A lightning to HDMI adapter. I barely do myself, I'm not a Mac person. Yeah.
If you have one, great. If not, we're not gonna worry about it this morning.
That's a good idea.
I'm gonna assume everyone was in the first seminar that toasted Rocky.
Yep.
So you all have a little to drink in you, so this is gonna be a little easier. Good. And everyone's gonna drink in front of them, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something I don't normally do. Because that's what Rocky had the amazing way. If there was something that you wouldn't normally do and you were in Rocky, hanging out with Rocky, you did that thing. So I'm starting off with a toast. And this is a toast that's been in my family for generations. It's call and response. So I'm gonna say one part and you're gonna say the other part and I'm gonna explain it to you. This is 3, 4, 5 generations in my family. We raise a toast and we say, may you live forever. And the response is, may you never die. And it's not that people don't die, it's that you live a life worth telling stories about for generations. And goddamn, if Rocky isn't somebody who everyone has stories about. So my wish for everybody here is that someday when you transition, folks are telling stories about you and making everybody laugh and smile and cry. So may you live forever.
May you
Never
never
die.
Good morning, fuckers.
No!
I call you fuckers because that's my favorite non-gendered pronoun. So, there's a couple of folks here who know who I am. But for the rest of y'all, the first question I want to know is, who the fuck is this guy? And why should I listen to him? And that's a valid question. My name is Jackie Summers, and I started a company called Jack from Brooklyn about 7 years ago. Because I had a cancer scare. My doctor in 2010 found a tumor the size of a golf ball inside my spine, and he told me, you are probably going to die. And if you live, you're probably going to be paralyzed. You should organize your affairs. I will, but it will adjust your perspective permanently. Given a new outlook, I thought to myself, what do I really want to do with my life? And the thing I wanted to do more than anything else in the world was day drink. There's nothing noble in what I do. I want to be around cool-ass people in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, talking about stuff that matters, having good food and good drink. And I wanted to monetize that shit. And I thought to myself, who's gonna pay me to hang out with cool people and drink all day? I thought, and know what I'll do? I'll launch a liquor brand. How hard could it be? I had no money. I had no background in hospitality. I had no background as a food chemist. I knew nobody and I knew nothing. Short version of the story is, I perfected a recipe in my kitchen. I wrote the business plan. I launched a distillery. 5 stars Paul Packold. 5+ Simon Difford Sorel Liqueur. 95 points Ultimate Spirits Competition. New York Times calls it Christmas in a Bottle. Star Magazine puts it on their celebrity page. They call it Caribbean Sunshine in a Bottle. It does gangbusters. But what I did not know, and what I could not have known at the time, was when I got my liquor license. When I got my DSP in 2012, I was the only black person in America with a license to make liquor. That's the face that everyone makes. No, don't clap. This is not a good, it's a terrible thing. That is a statement on the sort of systemic oppression that we are trying to overcome. And the only reason I got a license is It's because I'm too dumb to know what I cannot do. That's my mutant ability. I'm too dumb to know what I cannot do. But I want you to think about what that means. I launched this liquor brand in 2012, and it's getting all these reviews. But every time I walked into a bar, every time I walked into a restaurant, every work with I ever did, every time I trained the sales team, every time I met with the distributor, every time I sat in a boardroom, it meant no one had ever seen anybody like me. I was Tigger. I was the only one. This is the part where I play the game, and the game is who's been to a zoo? Show of hands. Everybody, good. Who's seen a lion in person? Who's seen a tiger in person? Who's seen a bear in person? Who's seen a black liquor brand owner? Now doesn't count. Fuckers. Y'all think you're slick. So, as I realized the difficulty facing me, because my brand was great, but no one had ever seen something like me before in this industry, I thought to myself, the best thing I can do for my brand is teach my industry about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because I'm telling you, these are buzzwords everyone uses today, but most people don't actually really know what they mean. Does anyone have one thought really quick? What do you think diversity means? A mixture. We're cocktail people. A mixture. What else? Anybody? A blend. We got one person here who's awake. What's up with the rest of y'all? What's diversity mean? Look around this room. Is the room diverse? Variety. Representation.
Seeing things that you don't know about. Seeing something new.
Thank you. It means you've got women and men and in between. It means you've got all spectrum of the melanin shades. It means you've got all spectrum of religion. It means you've got different beliefs and different backgrounds and different upbringing, different sexual gender and orientations. Diversity is not just black, white, male, female. It is an entire spectrum of beliefs, and we want to embrace the entire thing. Just quickly, we're almost at AV, y'all. If that's what diversity means, what does equity mean?
Equal.
Not quite. Let's get a little more. What does equity really mean?
Same seats at the table.
One at a time.
We have seats at the table.
You have seat at the table. Very close. Please.
Same opportunities for everyone.
Very close.
Value?
Say that again.
Value?
Value. Very close. So here's what I want people to think when they think in terms of equity. We got AV. Everyone give a hand to our AV guy. So look at this top slide. You give everybody the same thing. That's equality. But we're all not starting off at the same place, are we?
No.
So we want to think in terms not of equality, but in terms of equity. Because there are, as I found out, systemic barriers that keep people from starting at the same place. We want to take that into account. Here's one way of thinking about it. If you're trying to get a good view and you were born standing on a big pile of money, the view is going to be pretty good. If you got a little money and a little education, the view is still going to be pretty good. If you got some education and no money, you can probably still do things. But if you have no money and no education, well, that is going to suck. And I'm speaking about it because I'm this guy. That's me. No money, no formal education. So equity is taking into account that there are systemic things in place that keep us all from starting at zero and making up for the fact that we're not all beginning from the same place. So equity, diversity, what is inclusion? You're all cocktail people. What does it really mean to be inclusive?
To be a part of something.
To be a part of something, but not just to be a part,
To include others. Allowed to be a part.
Be accepted.
to be accepted, to be involved,
To be open.
to celebrate differences. Can y'all hear me? Inclusivity is to be heard. Now, and I'm going to frame this in terms we can all get. We're cocktail people. If you have an ingredient in your cocktail and it's not heard, why is it there? The idea that everyone has a unique voice and everyone gets to contribute, the idea that everyone is heard for who and what they are, that's what we're going for. Just like you'll make balanced cocktails, we want to balance society. So, diversity, have this great big picture. That looks like what is not you. Equity, take into account for the fact that people don't start from where you start. And make up for that. Inclusion, it's not just having people at the table, make sure everybody is heard. Okay, so that's the what's. Let's talk about the why for a second. Do we actually need to have this conversation? Shrugs. Here's a truth that is hard to swallow. The hospitality industry in which we work is a microcosm of society in which marginalized people suffer disproportionately. This is just a fact that we deal with. Underrepresentation, both in management and employee I hate that word, remuneration, drastically affects profitability. And this is the point where we always say, altruism versus capitalism. I never assume good intentions will change one goddamn thing. The world doesn't move on good intentions. I'm going to assume everybody in here has good intentions, but let's, maybe you work for an asshole who doesn't give a shit about good intentions. Do they like money? Because we can statistically prove there are reams of data that show if you are more diverse, you'll be more profitable. So I always want to tell people, everyone worries about whether or not they can make a contribution. If you are not personally motivated by altruism or the right thing, or if you work with or for someone who's not personally motivated by altruism, you'll make more money. And that's an easy selling point when you're having this conversation. And while we're having this conversation, let's talk about the pay gap. Just quick survey. Women in the room, do you feel like you make as much as your male compatriots?
No.
Men in the room, do you feel like your women compatriots make as much as you? Well, what are you doing about it?
Yeah, in the bar business.
You feel like they make more? Women, do you make more than the men do?
No.
Are you hearing this, men?
How do we know?
It depends on having honest conversations about what we make.
Sure.
We do
I mean, this is a really tough thing that people don't like to have out loud, but if you don't have this conversation out loud, how will you know? And I have a very simple equation for all of this. I hear all the time, you can't pay women more. If you can't pay the women more, pay the men less. And then suddenly every man will want to make sure that women are paid what they're paid. And here's my allegory for this. Who's familiar with the 3/5 compromise?
Yeah.
Anyone want to say what it was quickly?
If you were, I don't.
You can say black. I'm
Yeah,
black.
that's what it was, right?
That's okay.
You just said black.
You can
or
say black.
Colored or whatever.
Black.
Your vote only counted for 3/5.
Right.
A white person's vote.
You weren't even a whole human being. You were 3/5 of a
A
human.
white man, hold on at the time.
Oh,
Well, yeah, but
yeah,
that's
property
true.
of
We vote, right?
say it again?
He said, I didn't mean, he said 3/5 of a white person. I was like, white man.
3/5 of a white man. Okay. And that's an important distinction. We can all agree that that was shitty and barbaric, right?
Yeah.
But if you work for a company that's paying you 75 cents on the dollar, what do they value you? Are you 3/4 of a person? And that's if you're a white one. If you're a woman of color and you're making 66 cents on the dollar, and I'm saying that, and there's not a black woman in the room. But are you 2/3 of a person to your company?
Yeah,
If you're
but-
Latina or you're indigenous and you're making 50 cents on the dollar to a white man,
If shareholder conscious companies only hired female employees, couldn't they bring down their labor costs then?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
That's a way to look at it.
Say it again, If shareholder conscious companies, right, that have shareholders, have owners within the company, have equity, if you want to bring down their labor costs to bring more money to the top of that company, wouldn't they hire an entire female workforce?
I'm not sure that's a good idea because I think they pay the women less.
Yeah, so
Well, I understand
Yeah,
what
that's what
you're
he's
saying.
saying.
That's what I'm
He's
saying.
Like, why don't they hire more people because they're gonna pay them less? The thing is, they don't wanna give up their power. So if you move more people up, they're gonna have more of the say. So the more people that you hire that are indigenous of that, it might be lower up front, but they're also giving away that power that they don't wanna give up.
Thank you.
we're good.
We always want to take the power dynamic
Yeah.
into consideration in these conversations. It's never just about money. It is almost always about retaining power. We went through that. We went through that. So now we're going to do why this should matter to you. We talked about what. We talked about why. Who stubbed their toe in the middle of the night?
Last night,
What do you do when you stub your toe?
I cried.
You swear. You hop. You might put. Your entire body stops to take care of that toe. How often do you think about your toe? Not at all until you stub it. But you stub your toe, and suddenly it's the most important part of your whole body. Your whole body will show that. Okay. We have a stub at the toe. Limp. Shut things. Like your whole body will conspire and go, protect the toe. We hurt the toe until the toe is okay. Divert attention and resources toward the toe. That's how the body works, and that's how society works. You protect whatever is your most vulnerable member at the moment. The lungs don't get to go, yo, fuck the toe. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm here, I'm pumping oxygen, I'm doing my thing. Your liver does not get to go, yo, toe, I'm minding my business, I'm processing toxins. The whole body contributes to the wellness of the whole body. And if you can protect the most vulnerable part of you, all of you is okay, and then truthfully you can get back to ignoring it. Protect whatever's most vulnerable. That's why it matters. This is the really fun part. There's a whole spectrum. So this is the part where I say, I started to have this conversation in Main Street because I'm the black guy, and there were only really a handful of black guys doing this when I started this. And what you teach people is it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be actively anti-racist in a system that's inherently set against you. I had that realization. I started teaching people that, and then I had the thought to myself, how's my anti-misogyny doing? Because I didn't think of myself as sexist, but I wasn't actually doing anything to help end misogyny, which meant I was de facto benefiting from a system that advantaged me and disadvantaged women. It's clear I have a level of oppression in this country. However, I'm a cis, hetero, male, able-bodied. I have a ton of privilege, and so does everyone in this room on a certain level. So the real trick is figuring out where you sit on this scale and figuring out what can you do to balance the odds? What can you do to add balance to the scale? If you're able-bodied, what can you do to help people who are not? Here's a story I love to tell. Last year at Tales of the Cocktail, I gave a seminar, and one of my presenters is a disabled sommelier. Yannick Benjamin is an amazing human being, but he's in a wheelchair. The hotel had 6 months of being aware that my presenter was in a wheelchair. The organization had 6 months of knowing that my presenter was in a wheelchair. We got to the presentation 20 minutes before we were supposed to start, and there was no wheelchair access to the stage. And we scrambled, and this is last year, we scrambled to figure out how to get this incredibly intelligent, talented human being who's differently able than me onto the stage. We had to pick his chair up and put him on stage. And then every time I think of that, it makes me think about how I take for granted the fact that I can just fucking walk. Y'all have bars. Can wheelchairs get into bars? Something to think about. Like, all of this spectrum, there's somewhere where you have power and something you can do, and it's on us to figure that out. But we want to be careful about how we use the power. I used to work on Wall Street, a place called Moody's Investors. 6 floors, 600 people. I was the only black guy in the building, not including security and male staff. Now, security and male staff was a quarter of the employees. That's not inclusion. They hired plenty of people of color. They just cut them off at the knees. So whenever we think about inclusion, what we want to think is, if all of your things point back to the center, it's probably really monochromatic. You can hire women and LGBTQ community and people of color and have it all point back toward the center, and you can still reinforce systemic oppression. However, if you decentralize power, if you hire women and people of color and put them the fuck in charge, everyone does better. And I don't have time for the reams of data on this, but like, everyone does better on this. Decentralized power is how we avoid tokenism. Now we get to the fun part. Everyone's gonna have to move again. We all are gonna have 2 minutes to move because we're way behind schedule. Not our fault. We're going to model what you can do. This is the how portion of the presentation. What can you personally do? We're modeling it after the civil rights movement of the 1960s, where basically everyone fell into one of 4 categories: helpers, advocates, rebels, organizers. I'm not going to tell you what they are right now, but just off the top of your head, who thinks you're a helper? Who thinks you're an advocate? About a quarter of the room. Who's a rebel? Less rebels. Who's an organizer? You have 2 minutes, because we lack time. You're going to build a team. Everyone find a helper, advocate, rebel, organizer. Go. All right, now, we've structured this so you can think about it in two terms. You want to think about changes you can make for your employees, and you want to think about changes you can make for your patrons. So, here's where the helper is. Who knows who that woman is? That's her name, but who is she? This was one of the most important leaders of the civil rights movement. Everybody knows Martin Luther King, and everyone knows Malcolm X. But when folks were off marching and protesting, getting thrown in jail, you know what they did at the end of the day? They went to her house, and she fixed everybody dinner. And she listened to them. And goddamn if that's not what we do, but fix people food and drink and listen to them. I got a good buddy named David Boltz in Brooklyn, and he always says, sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is fix someone a drink and listen to them. So, if you are a helper, you might be able to give personal assistance and support. Maybe you don't feel like you have a lot of power to change things, but you can actually reach out one-on-one to people and see what you can do. So if you are a helper, you have 1 minute as teams. What can you do for your employees and your patrons? Go. This is your time to shine. What can you do for employees? Anybody? Teams.
We got educate.
Educate.
Empower. Offer whatever it is you pay.
Mentorship.
Respect.
Respect.
Lead by example.
Lead by example. What else we got?
Create a dialogue amongst your team and your owners.
Awesome. What's the dialogue about?
The dialogue can be about how we can all succeed by hiring more diverse staff, or just getting conversations going that didn't previously happen, like this lecture, for example.
What else we have for your employees? Anybody?
Benefits.
Say it again.
Benefits!
Benefits. Because, eyes and teeth count.
Not just that, like your 401k, your PTO, your...
Being able to take a day off when you're sick.
Yeah.
I got a good buddy who's a chef who's been sick for 3 weeks and can't take a day off. Like, I got love for her, but I don't want someone who's sick fixing food in my kitchen. Just saying. Please.
The question that was brought up is, how does this fucking relate to me? I'm a bartender, we all split tips. I'm not saying any names or anything, but like, it does, think about it. Just because you're a bartender, I'm a bartender, we make the same amount on money, but our managers, our owners in the back of the house, they get paid differently. They affect our tips, they affect our money, they affect how much money we make, so that's how it affects. So starting those conversations with your employees of making this think like this is bigger than me.
Excellent. Who's got back of the house staff that doesn't speak English? It's not the first language.
Not me. It wasn't him.
Who's learned their language? Right? Like, that's something you can do. Let's talk about for your patrons. What can you do for your patrons as a helper, please? What's a safe space? And this is a really important conversation.
Yeah. Who is or has worked in a bar? Who's been through sexual harassment training? That is awesome. I got a good buddy out in Oakland who owns a great bar, and she has a very simple process for eliminating sexual harassment in her bar. She has everyone trained to recognize it while it's happening, and if any of her employees see sexual harassment in action, they're authorized to look to somebody and go, "Thank you for your patronage. You're no longer welcome here. Wow.
Please leave."
So is that the best form of education, or maybe with parents not involved in
I kind of think you need to train people so they know how to handle situations. Women in the room, who's been in the bar and been harassed?
Oh, really?
I really need the men in the room to see this because it's a male problem. Men, look at this. Like, it is within our ability to end this. Let's be really clear, sexual harassment is mostly a male problem. So if we all went back to our bars, our cities, our states, and made harassers feel unwelcome, as in addition to making people feel welcome, how would that go? I mean, do you want to be the generation that ended sexual harassment in bars? Because I want to be part of that generation. Like, there are things we can always do as individuals, as helpers. Let's go to the next category. All right, advocates. Who's now at RBG? Yeah. May she live forever. Okay, so advocates are people who are already in a position of power, who can institute change and policy. Let's have a quick conversation about what advocates can do for employees and for patrons. You got a minute. Go. Let's see what we came up with as teams. Everybody? As teams, what did you come up with that you can do as advocates, first for your employees?
Well, what we realized is that what we would do for our employees is probably what we would do for our community and for our patrons as well. So there's a lot of, so for us it was really just like symbiotic. One of the biggest things that you can do is listen and set a precedent and systems to improve those that need help and structure.
Thank you. Say it again.
Believe victims. Believe victims.
Thank you. Please.
So as advocates, you're normally in power. So if you're the buyer, buy ethically. Look into all sides. If somebody can't answer a question about something, say, hey, before I bring this in, get back to me with this information before I bring it in. If you don't agree with something that's going on, get rid of that product or get rid of it quietly. You don't always have to make a post about it. If you do, you do. But if somebody asks you a question, answer knowledgeably without, like, we can have passion, but answer it respectfully in a way where your patrons can actually, like, they don't feel like they're getting attacked for asking for it. You're just giving them the information on why you no longer carry such and such product.
Thank you. Thank you. What else we got? Please.
Well, as a disabled bartender, whenever I go to a new bar, I always try to what really spoke to me about the definition is how advocates can reinvent systems. So when I ever get to a new bar, I always try to maximize my mise en place. And the reality of it is that most bars are not equipped to deal with disabled bartenders. Me, myself, I'm an amputee above the knee. So I try to basically reorganize everything to have it at hand, so I don't have to move and I can put out as many cocktails as I can without actually having to move so much. And in doing so, I can pass on that knowledge to other bartenders, bar owners, and advocate for people like me inside the city.
Who's helped design a bar? Is your bar ADA certified? I mean, like, I'm working on my able privilege every day, but that's a real thing. It's a real thing to take for granted, the fact that I can just walk into a bar and there's access. So this is something that advocates can really consider in the process. Please, you had a comment.
Just something else. You could highlight it. You highlight the discriminated demographic. So, for example, if I was a bar owner or the manager, for example, after Hurricane Maria, for a certain amount of time, only have guest bartenders from Puerto Rico, directly giving back, not just donating to the Red Cross.
It's a great idea.
A certain percentage of the money I'm directly impacting a person, and then they're taking that money home to their bar and their family and their country.
Great idea. Anything else for employees?
We have a few. So yeah, we talked about, like, as an advocate, you basically create policy that sets tone. You know, so if you're proactive and having the ability of being foresightful, using personal experiences to gain and basically solve problems before they arise. I think that's something that's very important. For example, like in our bars, you know, it's very, you have to be very direct and very black and white. Like there's no room for interpretation. So like for us, it was just like creating, like we had a dating policy, you know, and I mean it's shallow and it's in the context of what we've been talking about, but it was direct. Like you knew what was going to happen if you decided to date somebody, and it was direct and swift, and everybody knew the consequences. And it was preventative because we wanted to create a happy, productive work environment with non-toxic after.
Please.
Two more, I think. Just actually getting involved in the literal legislative process that like governs your industry, and rewriting the law so that they reflect a more equitable society. And another one that occurred to me after our discussion, at my bar, I'm the only cis-het white male involved in the whole business. I don't do any publicity. If somebody comes and wants to do, a feature or something like that, film a segment, whatever, it's not me.
There's a really great point that's being made here, and I want to focus on it for a second. What he's basically doing is decentering himself.
And I manage the bar, and I'm by far the most visible and experienced person there, but we don't do that.
But as the white guy, you're doing like this. And decentering whatever the dominant thing is makes everything more balanced. And think of this in terms of a cocktail. You got makers work in front of you. How are you going to balance it? Right? There's already strength in your cocktail. What's going to soften the strength? What's going to add to the flavor? What's going to add to the aroma? You always want to think in terms of, here's my strongest element. How do I move it out of center so everything is in balance? Let's talk about your patrons. What can you do as an advocate to make things better for your patrons? Please.
We also had set up trainings, something like this. So bring in somebody who can actually speak on a certain topic. So make sure you talk about inclusion. Because I work in Orlando where a lot of tourists come through, so you can't judge a book by its cover. You really can't. You don't know how they're going to treat you, anything like that. Different cultural backgrounds always coming through. So it's really just being able to roll with whatever people throw at you and react in a professional manner no matter who's in front of you.
Awesome.
So just set up training so your staff is aware of that, they know how to react in certain situations, and then go from there.
Thank you. You and then you.
Piggybacking on that, signage, whether that's putting a sign outside your door saying we are ADA accessible, and or putting on your website saying every single manager on duty is Green Dot trained. So patrons know that going ahead of time, so if someone's uncomfortable, they might not choose to go to that sort of business.
Just to, I'm gonna, you and then you, but just to highlight on that point, there are people that are afraid that they'll lose customers if they take a stance on harassment. But here's the great thing about it. Women drink. People of color drink. The queer community drinks. Like, one of the ways marginalized people deal with being marginalized is we drink. And we will support your places if we feel safe. And a safe space is a real thing because there are trans lives that are being killed on a daily basis in this country. This is a real thing, so yeah, like, yes, it's the right thing to do. But also, we'll drink at your space if we feel good there. So make us feel good there. Please, and then, please.
Well, bouncing off that, it's easy to say I'm not that what I do is for customer base, right? The energy is left for your customer base. So if someone is very comfortable in your bar, that's required that to be an MCD specifically, okay? And so you have to step out of your own, shell.
Right.
To be able to see other people, because it doesn't really, from my point of view, it doesn't matter that I'm advocate for white, advocate for white males, right? But being able to at least try to understand somebody else's point of view. I mean, even if somebody's your enemy, you should have empathy, because at least you understand where they're coming from,
Empathy is the greatest quality of all. Please.
One thing that I think can be important to do for your patrons is if somebody says or does something, I guess primarily says, like let's say some guy says some misogynist or racist comment to his friend who also looks like him. I don't need to have another person who is around who that joke was targeting hear it to tell him that that's not welcome in our space. Or if some guy is walking around hitting on everybody in the bar, to say, come sit right here on my well and talk to me, you understand? Like actually taking those fights so that the people who are being marginalized and hurt by these actions don't have to fight the fight to be the only one fighting that fight.
Now, this is a really good point. We're talking about diversity and inclusion and all this stuff to make a better society, but who actually lives and works in a diverse area? Who has to deal with areas that are not diverse every day? It's more challenging. It is. Like I was in PDX a couple of weeks ago, and we had the Kentucky contingency in, and they were clear about this. Like, please say it again.
Fight the fight for them. You don't make the people who are being marginalized have to do that work. Like I can explain to a guy who looks like me who's making a comment that's fucked up that he thinks I'm gonna go along with why it's fucked up. Like a lot of the low-hanging fruit people maybe who are in this room, like y'all, we are convinced. But there's a lot of people who aren't, and it's because they have not potentially heard it from the right source.
Right.
And like, it's not the job of the oppressor to educate the oppressed. Or excuse me, the other way around. It's not the job of the oppressed to educate the oppressor. Sometimes you need to just suck it up and do the fucking work.
Yeah, like take the hit. I'm going to tell a quick story and then we're going to go on to the next one. A couple of years ago, there was a bar thing in New York, and there's a bunch of my boys in town, and I'm on a text thread, and we're trying to figure out where to go for the evening, and I see the name of a colleague come up, and suddenly the text thread gets really sexist, and then it gets borderline rapey. And I'm reading this, and I have several revelations at the same time. Number one, these are my boys. Number two, the boys clearly think I'm okay with this. Number three, if I don't say something, I'm complicit. So I'm reading this stuff and I type in and I go, y'all gonna make me be the mature one, aren't you? I'm gonna need you to refer to a colleague in a different way. And the first thing that comes back is, oh, it's just jokes. And so I write back into this text stream, the way you're joking about this woman right now is the way people use the N-word about you when you leave the room. And then everybody understood. So yeah, like if you hear stuff, and you're an advocate, step forward and take the hit yourself.
And I think not to feed into the rage culture.
No.
Especially with social media.
No.
Everybody wants to get into a fight and call someone down. You're not going to educate. When you put somebody against a wall, it's your natural inclination to fight back as opposed to push it aside.
But the great thing about what he said is he's just listening. He's not actually offering any other opinion, but he's relieved the burden of someone else hearing that. He's listening. If I'm interpreting that wrong, please tell me.
No, I think that's an accurate aspect.
Let's talk
Can
about...
I, on that same point, on
Please.
listening, just the other advocate thing I want to put out there, one thing that we like actively talk about, when you bartend at our bar, you just plug your own phone and play whatever music you want. Being clear that certain things, like You cannot play a song that has like some sexist bullshit in it. I don't want to hear it. You cannot play a song that might have some racist bullshit in it. I don't want to hear it. But look, I might like that song. It might be a good song, but you can't play it. And one of the other things that we talk about is like have a bartender that comes in that's playing music that is just tending towards one culture. Whether it's you coming in here playing fucking classic rock or all hip hop or whatever it is that's like way down into, it's like, look, this is a space where we want everybody to feel comfortable. So you're gonna have to work some diversity into the music that you're playing on your shift. And that, like, even tiny little minor things like that, so that people come into the space and feel welcome.
It's a good detail.
I don't want to listen to blah blah blah, and you might not want to either. So let's find some middle ground.
All right, last category, organizers. Excuse me, second last category. We're taking a goddamn time with this. Okay, organizers. These aren't the advocates. These aren't the helpers. These are the people who know how to put resources together. You might not be like the loudest mouth, but you know how to find the loudest mouth. You're the people who actually organize teams. What can you do for your employees, for your patrons? You have a minute. Let's go. That you can do as an organizer for your employees. What ideas can we share? Please.
I spoke a lot. I'm willing to sit back for a minute, but we have a list. All right,
Speak now.
Okay, so,
let's hear it. Because the point is to share ideas.
All right. So we pretty much every event we ever do in our bar is a fundraiser, and we try to make sure that we're affirming our values and who we support. The example that I gave, we probably put 5 figures into a local organization called Women with a Vision that's founded by Black women, and everything that they do, basically anything they can do to help communities of color, that's what they do. We've had local politicians come and bartend behind our bar. Has never been anybody but a Black politician that's come to do that. We try to make sure that events that we're at, so I referenced the diversity that we try to foster on our staff. It also plays into experience levels, and we make sure that people have interests outside of bartending that vary as well. And then when it might be a community that I don't feel like I have a lot of access to, I'll go to that bartender and say, like, what do you think we could do to plan an event that would bring this community in that I know that you are, identify with and are a member of? I got these skills. How can I teach you to run this event? Or we might do an event that is like a drag show or something like that, and we will actively promote it in LGBT spaces, not just the craft cocktail world, and say we're gonna actively do the outreach to make sure this community is welcome here.
Awesome. What else did we get? Please and please.
So on top of that, I used to organize all-female bartending events all the time, and we did one at a
Speed Rack fucked the world.
I wish. It was just kind of to highlight, because a lot of the craft cocktail bartenders in my town are male.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, I got pissed off one day. I'm like, I'm fighting to get in this and I can't. And so I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. And so I didn't know a lot of the other female bartenders, so I sent a mass text out to everyone like, hey, anybody want to do this with me? And we ended up raising $4,000 for the homeless community, and then we raised another $2,000 for Puerto Rico through CORE, which is in Orlando. But we also did that at a usually it's like a drag club plus something else, but we invited actually a couple of performers who were at Field Day to go do it, and so it was getting the LGBTQ community involved as well. And we did it on a night with Drag Race on there, so we got the queer community involved in it. But onto that, helping your patrons, because we would flood bars that I don't work at, so it helped your patrons get used to seeing somebody that you normally don't see behind the bar.
Everybody, come on. Exactly. Thank you. Please.
So kind of, building off of that, we thought about placing staff in positions that you know that they're going to excel at. That doesn't necessarily mean putting your best bartender up front. What that might mean is having your best expressed interest that, you walk into a bar, who's behind the bar?
Right.
It's usually a white man.
Right.
And also white women, and, if you're not seeing the diversity represented behind the bar, you're seeing like competition, they're just like, as athletes are doing anything that's not being the face of your bar. Let them be the face of the bar, because they're more than valid, and they will probably surpass you. You want to train them to be better than you, because that is the future of our community, is diversity. The whole point of this.
Absolutely. And this is worth saying. With the current anti-immigrant sentiment in this country, we need to protect the people we work with who have to fear not just for their jobs, but for their lives from ICE. That's our responsibility. Right now, they're the stub toe. What do we think of for our patrons, organizers? Any ideas? Please.
It's similar to something.
Can I let
yeah,
her
yeah,
go
yeah,
first?
yeah, yeah. No,
Sorry.
please.
This is something that I had, for example, from my bar that applied to both the employees and the patrons. Something I do every March. We do Women's History Month cocktail list. So our entire cocktail list features only spirits that either owned or distilled by women.
Nice.
And the names of the cocktails are by women either past or present that have made a difference in any industry. So the goal is to have a woman from different industries, from science, from English, from hospitality, as well as from different backgrounds. So I had Rita Moreno, I had just a whole bunch of different artists and scientists and teachers, Sally Rye, just women. And the whole goal is that, one, our bartenders, they're going to learn about these women and the impact they made in our history as a whole, not just for women, but for society. And then also for our patrons, so when they order the cocktail, like the Rita Moreno cocktail was Love and Lust, they present the cocktail, and there would be a tag on it that told you who this woman was and the impact she made to whatever it was in society. So it not only told our employees, but also our patrons, so they may not Google that person on their own, but when they came into the bar for a drink, they'd order it and learn something both about the producer of the spirit and the woman that inspired the drink.
I want to
So-
drink at your bar.
Yeah.
February, you're going to see me, for real.
March, yes.
March, sorry. What else we got?
I don't even want to take air away from that. That's amazing.
Anyone else? Let's go to rebels. Everyone knows a rebel. The loudmouths, the shit starters, the ones that want to stir the fucking pot, right? You might not be an organizer, you might not be in a position of advocacy, you might not be a helper, but you can fuck shit up. Right, rebels, what can you do for your employees and for your patrons? You got a minute, we're about to wrap it up. All right, kids, let's wrap this up. What did you come up with as teams that rebels can do for employees and for patrons? Please. Everybody?
Yeah. The one y'all want
Everybody?
to share from our group? Right?
Please.
So something that you can do for
I
your
just don't want to be the
employees
one.
and patrons, it seems insane that this is not the norm, it's just starting the conversation, highlighting the issues, and bringing to the forefront anything that you don't agree with. So for instance, on the sense of sexual harassment, if you see something, say something, stand up for what you believe in and genuinely fight for it to bring it to the attention of everybody around you.
Awesome. Make some noise. What else do we get? Please.
Sometimes it's okay to go against the grain, because if you don't and you do everything by the book, then you're never going to have change, you're never going to have progression.
Thank you.
They changed the status quo.
Change the status quo. Thank you. What else do we get from rebels?
They make people feel uncomfortable with their privilege.
Make people feel uncomfortable with their privilege.
Thank you. What else?
I think a great thing about Rebels is they're able to be educated and have those super formal and informal conversations, like we've been talking about Diageo and Founders and all these other brands, and being able to tell people why, and like informing the staff, informing the patrons of why they are making these moves and having these conversations and why it's such a massive issue. I think it's super important that Rebels are always informed and being educated and educating people on things like on an hourly basis.
It's a great point. Thank you. Please.
I think the rebel often gives that outside perspective that everybody doesn't quite catch, even when I'm talking about the status quo. And I find that sometimes we say some outlandish things. Mark is my example. I say some shit and he's like, "Huh," and I'm like, I don't think about it like that. Well, my favorite time of being the person who speaks outside the box is like when everybody else is like, oh fuck, I didn't think about it like that. I'm like, yeah, like that perspective sometimes gets you in trouble, but it's also.
And to be clear, you're the rebel, you're going to take the hit.
You're right.
Can we have all the rebels stand up because I want to see who they are?
Sam is outside too.
If you're the rebel, you're going to take an inordinate amount of who the fuck is this and why don't they shut up? Because we're disturbing the natural order of things, and the natural order of things sucks. Fuck shit up, y'all.
If I can paraphrase some of the stuff, to stay consistent in your values, even if that means you got to take one on the chin, and to be willing to be the first one to say something, and to, you know, it like that might hurt you, that you might think that's going to hurt your bottom line, but to just say, like, you know, whether it's saying I got a quick trigger finger, if you're saying they're doing wrong shit, you're out, and fucking Yelp it, I don't give a shit. Or if you're saying this person or this practice in the industry is fucked, and I don't give a shit if this like catches, you know, wildfire in the industry or not. This is us, we don't do it.
Just to combine what you said and what you said, this is just not about staying consistent in what you have to say. It's about continuing to educate yourself so that you are moving. The times are moving so quick. I called y'all fuckers because who's had a conversation about pronouns in their bars?
Yeah.
That's awesome. But this is a real thing now. Like, you cannot assume it's a he, she thing anymore. Have a real conversation about pronouns in your bars. They, them, fuckers.
Y'all.
Do this thing.
It's so easy.
Someone had their hand around here.
Getting back to rebels, would you?
Please.
We didn't have one in our group. Would you agree that half the? Well, he was. Yeah, he was helping out. We were missing one, but I think from what I've seen is that, or what I experienced is that it's how it's said, not what is said. And if the rebels were to come down to a level of not anger or not, you know, like bring themselves into a point where the message was heard the proper way, I think they would get off further.
Well, I'm gonna push back on that. He showed a picture of Malcolm X.
Right.
And, you know, every movement needs a Malcolm X, it needs an MLK, and it needs a Georgia Gilbert as well. And those people need to be able to play to their strengths. And
Martin Luther wore glasses that he didn't need to be part of.
There was also a Whitney Young. Like, it's okay to be the one.
He used the glasses not so much to show that he was an educated man. He used it so he could push himself to a role.
So I actually have.
Look, I don't mean to be like shouting down the point. I'm just saying.
I
just
actually have a really good illusion for this. Who took a shit this week?
All the time.
Like right now.
20 years.
How fucked
Never
would
happened.
your life be if you did not have an asshole? So, what we're talking about really is sphincter control. Because you all need an asshole. If it's open all the time, it's a problem. If it never opens, it's a problem. But if you can have that 15 seconds a day, but it does what you need it to do, then it's perfect. Then shut the fuck up. So, like, you need your asshole.
Fair enough, yeah.
So should leaders, should the rebels be leaders? Because for instance, it's my perspective. You have somebody talking about unity and peace, but when the people who are in power think all that's cute, it doesn't matter. But when someone says, well, maybe I'll break into your house and burn your shit down, then everybody's like, oh fuck, who's the reasonable person?
We're not advocating breaking into anyone's house and burning shit down.
Open the
wait, just, we wanna, that's the most important part. We want to open the conversations. That's essentially what rebels do. Organizers and advocates and helpers will step in after that, but if you need to get fired in your conversation, you gotta have a rebel hand. There was one other hand up, then we gotta wrap it up. There was another, please.
It's normal for the system to fight back.
Thank you.
So you have to be willing to take criticism.
Thank you.
And it's often very common for them to frame you as a rebel as well, because they are comfortable with the fact that you're attacking the system. I'm actually like a food writer, so that happens to us all the time.
All the time.
The minute they're going to talk about something happening in the food industry, we start getting attacked. And they're like, why are you guys just talking about food? Stick to your job. You know, we're talking about the food industry.
Food is political and booze is political.
So that's
And if you don't think booze is political, have a conversation with Maggie Campbell about rum. Oh, yeah. So, to wrap things up, organizers, rebels, advocates, helpers, who found themselves in more than one category? That's a great part about this. You're not consigned to a single role. You can flow with whatever you're doing. Start with where you are, with what you have. Do what you can. That's the whole point, is it's all going to flow and change. But wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you can make a difference as a helper, as an advocate, as a rebel, as an organizer. There's something everybody can do that makes the table look like this room. This is what we're looking for. Women and men and people of color and queer people and people who are differently abled, all contributing together to make it better for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it's time to eat, right?
And drink. Guys, come on, give Jackie a round of applause. That was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it. That was awesome. Guys, before I forget, when we're done, make sure you grab a glass to take home. It's representative of our grain bill. 70% corn, 16% red winter wheat, 14% malted barley. So take it home, put it under your pillow, and think about Makers. And then we'll sleep tonight. We won't be mad. On another note, that pour that you have before you, that is RC6. That is our latest release. We're extremely proud of it. Just want to talk you guys through it real quick. I know we're over. But give you just a high-level overview with it. Our first rollout of a limited national release, and also our first release in our new wood finishing series. Took us about 2 years to develop that liquid, but we're extremely proud of it. Brought to life by Jane Bowie, an independent stave company. These are the guys that produce our barrels. Truly world class at what they do. What's cool about it is this very same process that we use to make Makers 46. Take a fully mature barrel of Maker's Mark, pop the top off, insert 10 of the RC6 staves, refill it with the Maker's Mark, age it for 9 additional weeks, and voila, you have your RC6. On the nose, you probably get some vanilla, some caramel, nice fruit. On the palate again, with that vanilla and caramel, some citrus, some nutmeg, those classic Maker's Mark baking spices, some creaminess up front. On the mouthfeel, and still that signature Maker's Mark flavor profile where it's going to hit mid-palate and roll forward with some of the sweet finish. So this RC6, we're proud of it, and what's cool, next year is going to be a completely different bourbon based on a new recipe. So something cool, something fun. I know you guys will probably stay up late tonight thinking about what's coming next with Makers. I know it, I can see it in your eyes, right? But guys, again, this has been phenomenal. We really enjoyed it. We're happy that you guys came out to hang out with us. Thank Jackie again. Definitely want to thank Dana and also thank Richard. Amazing to be with you all. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you chose to hang out with us today, and for that we're grateful. Happy Repeal Day. See you guys later on. Sure. Cheers.